Right, in this video, I am going to show you how I take my PearDeck lesson and how I get my kindergartners onto the PearDeck in class and sort of how I run the program and what I do with the data afterwards. So before my kindergartners come into class, I open up my slide deck and I open up the PearDeck extension and I start the lesson. I start the lesson here, and before I click this, I do want to remind you of this. So if your students are like already logged in or are more capable, like my older students are already logged into their Google accounts. So I require student logins. That way I can see who is who. For this one, I turn it off. My kindergartners and first graders are not always logged into their Chrome accounts. And that's not something that I'm interested in trying with them. So I have this toggled off, so they will only join with an avatar and a nickname, which is fine. This is, to me, a very informal assessment. I wouldn't do a whole class thing like this if I was giving them um, like an actual grade for it. It's more of a participation grade. Um, so I don't require them to log in, but if that's something that you want to do, you want to make sure you toggle that in here before you get started. So I'm going to press start lesson, and what it's going to do is ask me if I want it to be student paced or instructor paced. I pick instructor paced because we're in real time, we're in a large group setting. I want to control the activities. Student paced I use for more of my older students. So I would pick instructor paced, and then I would wait for this stuff to pop up, and it is going to eventually give me a link. And that is what I put inside my Clever page. So it's loading PearDeck. So this part is the dashboard, which I don't need right now. So I X this out. So this is the part where I get my code. So you could send your students to joinpd.com and they could put in the code. My kindergartners and first graders cannot do that. So what I do is I look down here where it says give students a link. So I've copied that link to my dashboard. Now, then I go to my Clever page. My students know, and I can show you what a slide looks like. So we're going to do it this week. My kindergartners, so this would be what they would see when they come in. They have their I can statement in there. I can draw pictures and answer questions using a PearDeck. We usually go into a mood board, which I don't have on there yet. We go over expectations. We say our poem together, and then we do our brain break. And then after our brain break, I show them this slide. And so they know, they have a visual reminder, and they know how to do this automatically. They go to Clever. They go to my Clever page, which is the chick. And I like to use the phrase click the chick. And then they know that the purple question mark is their PearDeck. And then I show them, like I told you in the last video, I show them this, whatever my first slide is on my activity that week, so that they have a visual cue of exactly where they're supposed to be. So I tell them, if you see me with a peacock and a zebra, then you know you follow the directions. If you don't see me with a peacock and a zebra, you didn't follow the directions. So I just remind them that once they click on the purple question mark, PearDeck is going to ask them, are they having a green, yellow, or red day? And then they should see this and they are waiting. So how I get them there is on my Clever page. I go in here to my PearDeck and I click the three dots because I've already made it. If you haven't made it yet, what you would do is you would click add or share and choose link and set it up this way. Since I already have this on here, I would press edit and I would come in and I would delete my old link. So I would take this off and I would press Control V and then I would press update. So now when my students go there, it's going to take them there. So I can log into it so you can see what it looks like. So this is what your students will see. How are you feeling today? It's telling me that I am the hippo. I do know some teachers that do walk around and like write down who was which animal. I don't do that because a lot of my students click out of it and then log back in, and then I don't know what their avatar is. So I don't bother with that at all, but this would be what your students would be seeing on their end. Okay. And then on your end, it's telling you now you have one student connected. So you can wait for everybody to join, but it will let them join late as well. So you don't have to, but you can't start the class until you have somebody in there. So once I have a couple of students in there, I press start class. And this is what I see on my end. So this is my teacher view. I can control the slides down here. Move this guy out of the way. I can control the slides down here. And then if I go on to the first activity, this is the teacher view. And then back here, this is the student view. So this is what they are seeing. So they would hear me say, drag the red star to the elephant. So they would be dragging that star over here to the elephant. Drag the orange star to the monkey. Drag the yellow star to the shark. Drag the green star to the tiger. And then usually I will ask questions, sort of prompting questions to remind the rest of the class that isn't done. Um, I would say to a student, what color star do you have on the elephant? And hopefully they say red. And I would say, what color star do you have on the monkey? And hopefully they would say orange. Some of the kids have figured out that the color of the word matches it, but not all of my kindergartners are readers yet. So I'm telling them the answers. So everybody's got their answers. What I do then on the teacher end is I lock their screens. And I do this so that we can see everybody's answers at the same time. If you don't lock your screen and you show the responses, the kids can still move their stars and it gets a little chaotic. So I press lock screen. I usually do a countdown for them as well. And it tells them your teacher has locked responses for this slide. They can see their answers. So I always tell them, please look at your answers while we go over what's on the board. And then I project these responses onto the board. And the entire class's responses are on one slide. So you could see, like, if there were more kids, you would see like a bunch of yellow stars, a bunch of green stars, a bunch of orange stars, a bunch of red stars. And I would say, like, oh, like so many students did such a great job picking the elephant and the monkey and the shark. And I don't really say anything about the people that don't get it right. I just sort of praise the ones that did the right thing and sort of review that and then move on. And then I I unhide the responses, I unlock the screens, and I immediately go to the next slide. So this is what I would have up on the board, but the students, again, are also seeing it here. So I would ask them, what is the answer to the math equation on your screen? And I would say, you have visuals to help you. If you cannot add the numbers up, you can count your counters. You know how to do that. Once you have an answer, you're not writing it, you're choosing the circle to the left of the answer. And so you would sort of wait and you could see what's going on. Now, on the teacher end, you can also see down here how many people have responded. So when I have this up on the board, I usually hover my mouse over it and sort of make sure I've got everybody. And then I usually give them a little bit like a 10-second warning. And I'll say, okay, in 10 seconds, we're going to freeze your screens. Please make a choice. And I try to remind them as nicely as I can. And then I lock screens and I show the responses. And it will show all of them and how many people. It doesn't have any names. There's no way to make somebody feel bad. So we may say, like, oh, why would somebody have pressed 5? Or, can show me on your fingers 3 + 4, talk about other strategies, things like that. So it's sort of an opportunity while their screens are locked for you to have a conversation about it. So then I can hide the responses, unlock the screens, and move on to the next one. And this one is a coloring one. So if you notice at the bottom, it says no responses because I have not yet touched my screen. Once a student chooses a color and touches the screen, it will tell you that you have a response. So this is what the coloring one looks like. On the student end, they have a pencil, they have a highlighter, they have a line tool, they have text, they have an eraser, they have an undo, and a garbage can. Now, the first couple of times you do this, it's a little bit chaotic. So the first couple of PearDecks I do, I just let them color whatever they want. And I walk around and try to talk to everybody about the different tools and erasing. We talk about how the pencil tool is like completely covers it up. It's more like paint. And then the highlighter tool, I tell them, is more like a colored pencil. You can still sort of see the lines underneath. And so I talk to them a little bit about those choices. And the line tool is something that can be frustrating for some of them. Some of them really love it. So they can choose, those different line tools. Texting is so they can type. They would press the T and then touch their screen, and that would give them a place to type. They can also change the size of those things over here. Like I said, there's an undo button. You can undo things. You can just press the trash can and delete the whole thing. So your goal here is to try to get them to hopefully color this rainbow in whatever order that they want. If somebody's done early, I tell them, please add your name to the slide, or please try to write the word rainbow, or I try to ask them other questions as I give everybody a few minutes to color. And then their favorite part comes when I show everybody's pictures up on the board. When I do that, I do not lock their screens because some students are still working. So I'm constantly reminding them and saying, okay, I'm getting ready to show all of your beautiful work on the board. If you're still working, that's okay. Please keep working. If you are done working, you can turn towards the board to see your work or your classmates' work. So I sort of give them a little bit more time to finish, and they love this part. And then I press show responses, and I can scroll through the entire class. So this one only has one because I'm the only one in it, but you can scroll through, and they love saying like, oh, that's mine. Or like, oh, they point out like, oh, I know that that's so-and-so. Some kids write their name, some don't. Sometimes if there's a really nice one, I might say, can somebody, give a compliment to the student? Does somebody want to say something nice? Does somebody want to share something? So it kind of builds some class communication, gives them a chance to practice being nice to each other. And then I always give them a warning. I'm getting ready to move on. I'm getting ready to move on to the next thing, blah, 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 blah. And then you get down to the end. And at the end, when I'm finished, I can press this. I can name it. So you can name it whatever like the teacher's name is. So I would put the teacher's name and maybe the date. That would remind me later, and I can press save and end session. And then on the student end, what they see is how did it go? So I tell them, please pick thumbs up or thumbs down. Did you like to do it? And then their session is over. In the next video, I will show you what I do with this reflect and review and with everything else that you can do with all of the information.